All right. We are live. Mule Tip Tuesday coming your way. Hope you guys are all doing amazing wherever you are in the world today. Try to get my screens lined up here. We're coming to you on YouTube and on Facebook today. Hope you're doing amazing. As you jump on, say hello. Ron Erickson, how are you, pal? Ron, you're always on here pretty dang quick. Good job. Who's on Facebook today, guys? See a couple of you on here. Comment, say hi, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Ron, I'm glad you're doing great, bud. That is awesome. Put this right here so I can read the comments together. Hey, Ken, how's Wisconsin? We got 2 Wisconsin folks on right now. Wisconsin's winning. Who's on Facebook? If you guys are on, just comment, say hello, tell me hello, where you're watching from. And then if you guys have questions that you would like to ask for Mule Tip Tuesday, feel free to do so. And we'll get to your questions. I'm just hanging out in Utah. Got a little snow yesterday, but it's pretty well melted off today. So it's not really winter here yet. Julie Barton, Olathe, Colorado. How you doing, Julie? Hope you're having the best day ever. I'm having the best day ever. I'd like a little more mule time. I'm sitting around. I'm not going to be able to ride for a little while. I had surgery on my meniscus, so I'm just sitting around. I don't get mule time. So yeah, I need to live vicariously through you guys. You guys need to ask your questions so I can think about mule stuff. So we got more people jumping on, looks like. As you guys are on, post your questions. What would you like to talk about on today's Mule Tip Tuesday? What do you want to ask? You guys can ask me anything you like. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes of my time here. And you can ask any mule questions you got, whatever you want to know. And we'll just go through them. First come, first serve. So if you got something, let's hear it. Hey, Connie Price. How are you, pal? How's Virginia? Ken Kaczynski says it's a little cold, snowy up there, up in Wisconsin. We got any questions, guys? What are your, this is our first Mule Tip Tuesday of 2026. And I hope you guys have lots of cool mule goals for the year. So maybe you could post some of your goals. Maybe you could ask questions in regards to your goals. We got a question from Jar Gibbs. Hello, Ty. Suggestion for working with a mule that paws when tied. So if I have a mule that paws when tied, my first thing I'm going to work on before I tie them up is getting their mind right. That's going to be my focus. I want to get that mind right. Because it doesn't matter. I could tie them up and leave them forever. And if their mind is still a little worried, then they're still going to paw. Or you might be fooled into thinking that they're standing nice when actually they're shut down. And I see that a lot when a mule just is out there standing, but really it's just shut down and quit because it's been tied up all day. So this is my suggestion. If you want to get them comfortable when tying, being tied up needs to be a good thing. Like it needs to be something that they look forward to. And it's not such a bad thing. So I might saddle up and ride them, and I might ride them pretty engaged. Like I might do a lot of stuff. I might go through my checklist, and maybe I put a lot of emphasis on transitions, for example. I do a lot of trotting and loping and work on transitions up and down. And then step off, go tie them up just to the fence inside the arena, for example, or in your backyard, whatever. Just tie them up and then just leave them alone for a little bit and let them have that rest being tied up. Give it just like 5 minutes, go get back on, go back to riding for a little while, engage their mind, get them really thinking, and then tie them up again. So that's what I do in the beginning, like when I'm starting colts. That's how I get them to stand nicely. And then later on, I use a high line. I love a high line. Um, they get a lot of really great benefits from being on a high line. So I'm an advocate for that for sure. But and then little by little, instead of just leaving them tied forever, time in short sessions. So that works for me. Good question, Jar Gibbs. I don't know all your YouTube names. I don't know. Okay, what else we got? Let's see. Curtis Rowdy Bush, how you doing, bud? From Bellevue, Kansas. Thanks for watching. John Wiley, hello. Shannon Agard, glad you're here, pal. From Lubbock, Texas. Julie Barton says, my mule loads beautifully, but wants to turn around and come back as soon as she gets in. So, Julie, when you load your mule up in the trailer, she turns around, wants to come right back out, go ahead and let her come out. And then maybe you go back from the trailer like 30, 40, 50 feet and engage the mule with a little bit of stress. You know, like maybe you send her around in a circle, but you don't want it to be like a nice little cute circle. You want it to be like a stressful circle. So you want the mule's head up, you want her tail swishing, you want her kind of just a little bit bothered, not too much. You don't want her freaking out, but you definitely want to have some stress there, and then take her back in the trailer, load her up, and just leave her alone. Don't try to tie her up. Don't try to shut the door. Nothing. Just let her be in there. If she wants to come out again, you let her come out. The more you force the mule to stay in the trailer when they want to come out, the more they're going to want to come out. We need to make sure we use the right thing easy, wrong thing difficult, and use that to our advantage and actually practice that principle. It's a very important principle. So that's all I would do. But I let the mule come out. I just engage him, just engage a little bit more, make it a little bit more difficult. And then I load them back up. And when I load them up, I leave them alone. I don't care if they turn around in the beginning. You got to pick your priorities. So the first thing I want to do is just make sure that they feel comfortable in the trailer. Okay. Um, and then I can address the turning around part. The turning around part is just the next level of that. So, but good question, Julie. All right, what else we got on here? Rebecca Price. I have a question. I've been doing trotting loping patterns. She figures out patterns after the second go, but my mare starts anticipating the lope, kind of rushy and worried. What can I do to help? So it's in their nature to get patterns and repetitions and these types of things. They want to make that subconscious. Like if it's pretty easy, the subconscious mind takes over, and they're like, "Hey, this isn't hard. I really don't need to like focus and get into this." So what we think as anticipation is really that subconscious mind taking over and doing its job. Uh, so, anticipating can be your best friend, or in some of these cases, your worst enemy. I would say this: if you had planned to go to the lope, for example, and they're going for it, like if you thought about loping and they did it, that is actually everything I want. If you didn't think about it and they're like skipping ahead, then that's the type of anticipation that we might stress about. And when that starts to happen, I would encourage you to focus on different parts of your pattern and reward each piece. Just do one little piece at a time. Stop, let them soak, leave them alone, and then combine different pieces of it in a variety of ways. We teach our checklist, like, and basically it's a pattern of mulemanship. I do the same thing every mule I get on every day that I ride them. I go through that same thing. But what keeps them from just jumping ahead and anticipating in that checklist is that soak time, that dwell time in between, and breaking it up like that. Good question, Rebecca Price. Robert Pooler, hello. Carl T. Gray, hello. Ken Kaziski says, is 2.5 years too early to put a light ride on Pearl? No, you could put a little ride on. Ken, I used to start a lot of them at 2 and 2.5. The reason I changed that, Ken, and I like to start mine between 3 and 4 now, is I do a lot of prep work, a lot of foundation work, a lot of groundwork. By the time I get in the saddle, I'm ready to go. Like there's things I want to do. And what I found is when I would ride them younger, Ken, like that 2 and 2.5 years talking about, I would put like super light rides on, and I wasn't hurting them, I wasn't damaging joints and all that kind of stuff. I was taking care of them, but the rides were so light and so basic that what would happen is I would not really matter a lot to those mules. They'd start to kind of not ignore me, but like I'd become kind of the barn cat on top of them, where I just didn't matter a whole lot. Because I would just kind of ride around, and I thought I was doing such a good job and getting them, used to me riding them. When in fact I was actually just teaching them to ignore me. So now, Ken, I do all my foundation work, all my prep work, all my groundwork, and I pony them, and I'll pack them a little bit and take them up on the mountain and cross water. I do all that kind of stuff, and then when I'm ready to start between 3 and 4, I can go right to riding them. And at that point, they're big enough, healthy enough, strong enough that I can actually do a real ride and get that mule engaged instead of me just bopping around on them thinking I'm doing a good job. So that's my 2 cents on that, Ken. Carol T. Gray, is the recommended age for riding a horse 4 years, the same for mules? So kind of the same thing I just answered with Ken. I like starting them between 3 and 4. That's my favorite. They got good minds at that point, and then they got good body and muscle. All right, let's see what else we got over here. Heidi, hello. How are you, pal? What else we got? Okay, Jennifer Bergstrom has a question. Sorry. Hello from Newport, Washington. What to do for a 4-year-old mule that randomly kicks out when tied, usually when he thinks he should be done? Well, so if you got your 4-year-old tied up and he's just kicking out randomly, then two things. I kind of addressed this tying up a little bit earlier, not with kicking, but what I suggested earlier in this Mule Tip Tuesday will fix that too. But before you tie up that mule, Jennifer, get him actually thinking, like engage the mind, get him really thinking, play with a small level of stress. Um, so you go through a session, we do our foundation class. We got our groundwork checklist, like go through that checklist and do it at a slightly intensified level to where the mule's thinking, focusing. And then you stop and you let him dwell, let him soak on that, let him come off of that a little bit. And as he's coming down, you'll see him looking and chewing, maybe lower his head, take big breaths, things like that. And then when you'll notice when you time up when they're in that frame of mind, you're not going to get the kicking. You won't have that. He's kicking out because he's irritated and, like you said, when he thinks he should be done, he's not satisfied. Now maybe you missed that boat and he's tied up anyways. Well, at this point, I would just leave him and let him sort that out. Obviously, you're not going to approach him while he's kicking and throwing a fit, so you're kind of stuck just leaving them tied up for a little while until things settle a little bit. So on your next setup, try to get them thinking, try to get them engaged, try to get them focused, and then tie him up when he's in a better frame of mind. That way they'll appreciate being tied up. That's the thing, you guys, is so many of us want to make them be tied up and we want to make them stand still. Well, we can't make them do nothing. I mean, I guess if you wait long enough, you get them shut down and you'll think they're standing tied, but they're just actually shut down. So do a good job on preparing before they're tied up, and you'll be good to go. Like with my babies, here's an easy example. Like I got a little mule that's coming through later on this year, and just 2 weeks ago, took her out for a nice long pony. I mean, we went for, I ponied her. I think we did like 7 miles, going through rocks and up and down steep hills right here. And 7 miles doesn't sound like a lot. It's a lot for a little baby that's not in shape. And then we get back, I put her on the high line and she's totally good. Very, very, very relaxed. So that's pretty important. The mindset before you do what you want to do, that's really the key on that. Curtis Raddybush has a question. What's the best way to get a young mule that don't like dogs over that? The plan is to hunt with hounds. Yeah, well, the dog thing is hard, Curtis, because for example, if a dog runs out into the pasture and it's just the dog and the mule's out there, sorry, dog, you're kind of on your own. There's really not a lot that you can do in that to help that dog out. So what I focus on, Curtis, is when I'm on that mule, I am redirecting those thoughts. So if I'm on the mule and there's dogs around me, I am keeping that mule mentally engaged. I'm getting them thinking. They're with me. They're riding with me. I'm not just sitting on them and they look at the dog, go after the dog. If they do that, then I wasn't riding them. I was a dude. I was a passenger. So I'm going to ride that mule. And I'm going to do things. Um, I like going out and not riding a trail, but riding out like through the woods, through the mountains, out through the desert, through the rocks, like going off trail with dogs, because that kind of gets my mule to thinking about their feet and not thinking about the dog so much. It gets their mind on something, and then they just kind of get used to the dogs. It also helps to have some good dogs around while you introduce these mules that are maybe troubled about a dog, because if I have a dog that just doesn't know and it puts itself in a position, to get kicked or something, that's not good. So, I gotta set myself up for success on that. But let's see what else we got here. Andrea Colson, 2833. Can you speak a bit about conformation on a mule? Is it as straightforward as with a horse? Any thoughts on hair whirl placement? Have you noticed any connection with hair whirls placement on mules? Yeah, I haven't got into the whirls on the hair thing, Andrea. Um, I don't. I've had all the things. I've heard all of the myths about that. There's been all kinds of studies done on that, like actual uh, grant government funded studies on whirls, and I don't get into any of it. Horse is a horse, mule's a mule, donkey's a donkey, and I just treat them as individuals. I really don't care about that. As far as the conformation goes, yeah, all the basics of conformation that you look for in a horse, you look for that same thing in the mule. There's a joke that we want them to think like a mule but look like a horse, and that is so true. At least for me, I wish my mules had a lot of the conformation like a good quarter horse would. Conformation is also dependent on what you're into. I mean, if you're a packer and you're looking for a good heavy duty pack mule, well, that conformation for that pack mule is going to be very different than for a really smooth riding mule. People that are into the gated stuff that really walk out and can gate, well, that's a lot different conformation than my ranch mules. I don't want my ranch mules to look like that. I don't want them to be built like that. They don't hold up in rough country and being roped off of if they're in that type of shape. So as far as conformation goes, it's a very, I guess, a personal preference thing to fit those needs. But as far as the healthy part of conformation, all those same standards are just like a horse. We always want them to have good legs. Unfortunately, a lot of mules are cowhock, pigeon toed. Like you get a lot of those two in there with the mules, and um, for longevity, for the average trail rider, some of these things can be, you can look past them. If they're going to get used really hard, then that's the more that conformation matters. So that would, conformation, we could go pretty deep on all that, and that's kind of probably more of a setting for a class, I think. All right, what else we got here? Barbara Williams. Hey, Ty, this is Barbara Williams from Warren, Missouri. I just purchased the sweetest and most willing mule. Do you have any suggestions for keeping him that way? Yeah, I love that question, Barbara. How to keep them sweet and willing. Um, be what you want them to become. So, how you ride that mule and how you get that mule thinking and how you engage that mule and how you keep that curiosity. How you end moments and sessions makes a difference. Uh, all the principles would apply to keeping it. You know, um, when you ride, I mentioned this earlier, but when you ride, just always focus on making the right thing easier. If the right thing for that mule to do is always easier to do, they'll do it. They will absolutely do it. So it's when we make the right thing difficult, and you know, when we contradict our own wishes. You know, like willing. I like that word willing. And another way we could say it, willingness is lightness. You know, it takes willingness to be light. So, for example, I see people will say, "I want my meal to be willing. I want my meal to be light," but yet they ride it uh, terrible. Like, for example, timing. You know, like you want to go to the right, and right now your meal turn. Let's just pretend for the sake of this conversation, you know, your mule really turns right nicely right now. But if you have bad timing from here on out, and you ask him to turn right when that foot's coming down, and you get to tripping him over and over and over, well, that willingness to turn right is going to go away. So your timing matters. Um, Lightness, like um, you know, how you pick up on the rain, what kind of gear you use, you know, all that stuff goes into play. So that's a big question, Barbara. Basically, you just apply all the principles that we teach, and you'll be all right keeping them that way. All right. Hello, Jason Smith. Jason Smith says, "Hi, Ty. I have a mule that gets scared passing hikers on the trail. Any thoughts?" So, Jason, when I'm on the trail, and I know it is etiquette for the hikers to yield, and there's so many equestrians, horse riders, mule riders that you know we think we own the trails. Yeah, I know that the Forest Service posts it like that, and it's supposed to be that way, but I disregard those rules completely, and I yield to everybody on the trail. Now, the reason is I want to pick where and when and how. I want to keep my mule centered. So if I'm coming up the trail and there's some hikers right there, instead of just waiting for those hikers to get off, I want to get off the trail. And that's including if I might be pulling a pack string, whatever, but I'm going to go off the trail where I want to go, and I'll let those hikers come past me. The young mules I ride, the colts, the inexperienced, they always handle that so much better than me trying to ride past a hiker that's standing next to the tree and all awkward and weird, you know? So I'm going to yield to them. And you'll find that if you yield to those hikers continually, like you do it a lot, you do it year after year, pretty soon your mule um, will kind of get over that, you know? And when hikers are moving and they're walking, they're much more likely to talk to you than when they're just standing there. So they come past you, talk to them, how's it going? Get them, get them discussing things with you. Um, you know, hope they have a good day. All that stuff really helps. But that's my top tip to you, Jason Smith, is instead of waiting for those hikers to yield to you, you yield to them. Makes a huge difference. That's a good question. Megan Brandon. Hey, Megan, I hope you're feeling better. I saw that you're sick. So I hope you're feeling better, pal. Megan says, "Hi, Ty. What are tasks that keep your mule saying yes when they are scared?" Well, that's a good thing. You kind of answered your question in that question, Megan. Keep them saying yes. Ask yes questions. Now, what are they? That is totally dependent on your. Uh, that's totally dependent on your level with that animal. What you know, you just go down the checklist, Megan. What can your mule easily say yes to in the checklist? Go through that groundwork. Go through the riding. If they can say yes to it, then do it. If they have a draw to a certain way, a certain place, go to it. So that question is kind of hard for me to answer, Megan, but the overall answer would be the checklist. You know, what are they good at in the checklist? So good question there. Hey, Brennan, how you doing, pal? All right. Carolyn, thank you from Idaho. Because of your training, I am now more aware of where my mule's attention is. The problem is, because he is so aware and always searching, I feel as if I am nagging when I constantly have to lift rein and remind him of my presence. And yes, I know I'm not a doormat. Carolyn, well, it's easier to keep their attention than it is to get it back. So if that mule is constantly leaving you, maybe you need to do a little bit more to keep him with you. And some mules are just a little bit more busy-minded, but you can ride pretty engaged. You can do a lot of things and keep them going. And like, so if I'm riding down the trail, for example, and the attention leaves one way or the other. Sorry, I got a call coming in. The attention leaves one way or the other, or you feel about to leave, just ask the mule to do something. Move a hip over, leg yield, shift up into a trot. If you're trotting, shift down to a walk, shift up to a lope, side pass. There's all kinds of things you can do. Go over that rock, go over that log, ride them engaged. If you're just sitting on them, kind of bopping down the trail, then your chances of losing that attention are pretty high. So do things that keep them with you. Good question. Marisa, how you doing, pal? How do I train my mule, Chris? Well, good luck. That Chris Clark he's impossible. So Kelly Moore Fryman, how you doing, pal? I'm glad you're here. Jake Hardy, preferred saddle pad. How do I go about finding the right one? Jake, there's so many good saddle pads now, man. My favorite is 5-star. And why is my favorite 5-star? Just because they last a long time. Like I got a 5-star pad that I've been using. I have seriously used it almost every day for the last 10 years. So, and that's a lot of miles, man. That's a lot of miles. I take care of it though. I keep it clean. So 5-star is my favorite. There's all kinds of good pads. So there really are. There's great pads out there. And so how do you find one? Well, I guess, Jake, you just spend the money and figure it out. But, my recommendation would be start with a 5-star. I know that's a good pad. I know it's going to last you a long time. Let's see what else we got here, guys. Hey, Dad. My dad's on right now. Luann, hello. How you doing, pal? Susan, hello. Joan Heimbach, hello. Well, you guys, it's been a good half hour hanging out with you. Hope you enjoyed our time. Thanks for the questions. Don't forget, every Tuesday, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, we'll do Mule Tip Tuesday on Facebook and on YouTube. So jump on, say hello. Maddie Dowd, how you doing? Glad you jump on. Karina, lots of people jumping on now, but now that we're about to jump off here. So anyways, hope you guys all have the best day ever. And I appreciate all of you. God bless you. And hope you have the best year ever coming up. It's going to be a good one. So we'll see you next week, guys.